So for instance, let me give you a sentence. For instance, John is an ox of a man. He is working in the fields, and these two sentences need to be joined using the relative pronoun who. Right. So he is an ox of a man and he is working in the fields. Right. So these two sentences need to be joined using the relative pronoun who. Right. So probably all of you are able to join these two sentences very easily using who. But the reason behind taking these two sentences is to make you aware of a possible error that may creep in while answering the question. The first thing is we can easily join these two sentences. John, who is an ox of a man, comma, he is working in the fields. Right? John, who is an ox of a man, is working in the fields. So that is how we usually answer the question. And here you need to understand that who is ox of a man is an additional information. It is not essential information. Okay. As such, that information should be placed between commas. So whenever you put certain information between commas, it means that is additional information, but not essential information. Right? It means the sentence does make sense even without this information. Even if you remove this part, the sentence makes perfect sense. So John is working in the fields. Right? So John being an ox of a man is an extra information. Right? So it is very important to place that extra information between commas. Right? So second thing, some students happen to ask me whether we can join these two sentences in this manner as well. What is that? Some students happen to ask me if this is also a right answer. John, who is working in the fields is an ox of a man. So John, who is working in the fields, is an ox of a man. Can we write? Can we join these two sentences using this way as well? So this was one of the questions that was posed during one of the sessions. But you know, it does make sense grammatically, right? So grammatically, as far as grammatical rules and regulations are concerned, this sentence is right. But apart from rules of grammar, there is something called sense and flow in English language. Okay. So this is not the right answer as far as your exam is concerned, because it disrupts the sense and its focus. Its focus is mainly on John being an ox of a man. Right. So our focus, because here the essential information is John is working in the fields. That is what John is doing right now. Okay. So that is the essential information, and John being an ox of a man is additional information. Right. So as such, we can only write this answer in the examination. John, who is an ox of a man, is working in the fields. Right. So whenever you have this doubt whether we can write that way as well, you always go for the safer option instead of going for experiments. That is very, very important. Right. So this is how we usually write the answer, and you go for the usual one instead of going for experiments in the examination. Okay. So let me give you a couple of sentences. See, the man is standing at the gate. He is a great musician. So a man is standing at the gate and he is a great musician. So out of these two sentences, the man being a great musician is more important than he is standing at the gate. So I hope you all get the point here, right? We have two sentences. A man is standing at the gate and he is a great musician, right? So here, what is the essential information? The man being a great musician. What is the additional information? He is standing at the gate, right? So the additional information should be in commas. As such, the man, the question is to join these two sentences using who. The man who is standing at the gate again, comma. So this is very, very important. He is a great is a great musician. Right? The man who is standing at the gate is a great musician. So this is additional information. As such, the sentence makes sense even without that. Right? The man is a great musician and he is standing at the gate is extra information. Right? So don't try to experiment with the answer like the man who is a great musician is standing at the gate. Okay. So I'll tell you why. I take this opportunity to explain two things here, very, very important.
And you can utilize the left side space.
So I have
There is so much
already
space in the left
told
side.
you that any information between commas is extra information, right? And it can be removed from the sentence. And if you remove this part, who is a great musician, the sentence does not make complete sense. Why? The man is standing at the gate. Which man are we talking about? No clarity, right? So I have raised this point because it was one of the questions that was posed during one of the sessions we happen to have, right? Okay. So don't do any experiments. Write the answer as it is, as you usually follow, right? Second thing, see here what is given. A man, a man is standing at the gate. A man is standing at the gate, right? But in the answer, we have written the man who is standing at the gate is a great musician. So we have not used the article A in the answer. Why? Because when it comes to this sentence, as far as article, the rules of articles are concerned, who is standing at the gate? Somebody we do not know, right? In the second sentence, we made it clear that he is a great musician. So when you join those two sentences, you know which person you are talking about, right? When we know about the person, we no longer use this article A. Okay. So as a general rule, if you don't want to get confused, even if he gives indefinite article in the question, it usually, the answer usually and always starts with definite article, not the indefinite article, because you are talking about something which is already known. Since we have two separate sentences, we are talking about an unknown quantity here, an unknown person here. But when you join these two sentences, you know very well who you are talking about, right? So don't make the sentence, don't make the mistake of starting the sentence with a man who is standing at the gate is a great musician. Okay, so avoid that mistake. I think it is clear, and we can move to the next question, question number 19. Fine. Minute. Next question number 19. Change the following sentences into passive voice. Change the following change the following sentence into passive voice, right? So active voice, passive voice question, that is question number 19. Right. So in voice, it is very, very important to identify the tense of the sentence, right? So if that is not the case, you will certainly make a mistake as far as the usage of be form is concerned in passive voice. For example, see, if you have any doubt, you can raise your hand. Okay, if you have any confusion regarding what is being taught here, you can always raise your hand or type your doubt in the comment section. So they will announce the results tomorrow. So right, so they will announce the results tomorrow. So we need to identify what the subject is, who will announce the results, they will announce the results. So they is the subject. What will they do? They will announce. This is the verb, right? So auxiliary verb plus main verb. What will they announce? The results. So the results is the object, not tomorrow. Okay. So what is the object? What will they announce? The results. So only the results is the object, not tomorrow, right? So when we change a sentence which is in active voice into passive voice, you know the rule very well. You have to start the sentence with the object, right? So your answer starts with the results, right? So what happens to will? So will becomes will be, right? The results will be announced tomorrow. Okay. This is the actual answer, right? So, but we students tend to use this by plus agent. The results will be announced tomorrow by them. In fact, this by them is not necessary. It's not necessary. Okay. Don't get confused. Please pay attention. Very, very important. This by them is not important. Why is it not important? Because when we change a sentence into passive voice, what happened is more important than who is doing it. Okay. So as such, when this doer does not have any relevance, we don't usually write it. So what is important here? Results being announced is important. Who is announcing them is not important, right? So it can be omitted, but as far as your examination is concerned, maybe you are not in a position to decide whether it can be omitted or not, right? Because the same sentence does not come in the examination. So instead of omitting this, regardless of the sentence that is going to come in the examination, you always go for this by plus agent, whatever the sentence may be, right? For example, the teacher is The teacher is evaluating the answer sheets. So what tense is this? So is present tense and ing form continuous tense, right? So this is present continuous. Very easy, right? So when it comes to passive voice, since ing is there, what be form is to be used in passive voice? Being should be used, right? So who is evaluating the answer sheets? The teacher. So the teacher is the subject, right? So what is the teacher evaluating? The answer sheets. So the answer sheets is the object. The answer sheets, is it singular or plural? So answer sheets is obviously plural, right? The answer sheets. So since it is present continuous tense, is present tense in continuous, right? You have to use present be forms, the answer sheets being plural. The answer sheets are, since it is a continuous tense, being should be used in passive voice, right? The answer sheets are being evaluate. What is the third form of evaluate? Because in passive voice, we always use the third form of the verb, right? The answer sheets are being evaluated. Okay. So the answer sheets are being evaluated is enough actually. Okay. So when we talk in general parlance, this is enough. Why is it enough? Because what is happening here is more important than who is doing it. Okay. What is happening here? The answer sheets are being evaluated. Everybody knows that answer sheets are evaluated by a teacher. We don't have to mention it, right? So there are certain things or actions where everybody knows who is doing them, right? But in spite of that, since it is an examination, there might be a confusion as to where to leave the agent and where not to leave the agent. So you must write the answer. The answer sheets are being evaluated by the teacher. Okay. So let's follow one standard way of answering the question instead of going for confusions or experiments, because at the end of the day, scoring a mark is the most important thing as far as our examination is concerned. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of uncommon sentences. Uncommon. See, when it comes to passive voice, so will becomes will be, right? Can becomes can be. Would becomes would be. May becomes maybe. So all these things, right? So in the same manner, have to becomes have to be or has to be. Had to becomes, I think you are not able to see what is being written down here. See, so have to or has to comes have to be or has to be, depending upon the subject. So had to be, going to becomes, going to be, so ought to becomes ought to be. Okay. For instance, he has to return the books. To the library. Right. So who has to return? He has to return, right? So he is the subject. He has to return what? He has to return what? The books. So only the books is object. Right. So we have seen has to becomes has to be or have to be. Right. Depending upon the subject. So here the subject is he. So we have has here. So when you change it into passive voice, the subject becomes the books, which is plural, right? So the books is plural. So the books being plural, you cannot use has, right? So the books have to be. So what is the third form of the verb return? Return. The books have to be returned to the library by him. Right. So we have already discussed that we are certainly going to write this by plus agent to avoid any kind of confusion and lose any mark in the examination, right? So the books have to be returned. In the question, has is there because the subject is he. When it is changed into passive voice, the subject being books, which is plural, have has come. The books have to be returned to the library by him, right? Right. So let me tell you Let me give you one more sentence and close question number 19, because we need to cover a lot of other things as well, right? So we ought to respect elders. So who ought to respect elders? We. So we is the subject. We ought to respect whom? Elders. So elders is the object, right? So I said ought to becomes what? Ought to be. So elders ought to be respected. Actually, elders ought to be respected is enough. Okay. So because who ought to respect elders? Everybody, isn't it? It is not that somebody are supposed to respect them and some people are not supposed to, right? So it is enough, but as has been discussed already, to avoid any kind of confusion, so we are going to write by plus is. Elders are to be respected by us. Okay. So let me get to the next one. Question number 20, that is reported speech. Right. So changing a sentence into indirect speech. So we have an example sentence here. He said, what were you doing with these keys? So what were you doing with these keys? Right. So the first thing is he said, this is the reporting verb. The reporting verb is in past tense, right? It is in simple past. So when the reporting verb is in past tense, so the given sentence must change its tense accordingly. So that is the rule, right? So what were you doing with these keys, right? There are two things here. What were you doing with these keys is in interrogative sentence. It means it is a question, right? It's a question. What were you doing with these keys? Second thing is, what is the tense of this sentence? So were denotes past tense and doing denotes continuous tense. So it is past continuous tense, right? It is past continuous tense, and according to the rules which we had already learned, past continuous tense becomes what? Past perfect continuous tense, right? Past perfect continuous tense. So since it is a question, questions should be asked, right? So the answer should be, he asked what. So since it is a question, in a question, the be form comes first and the subject comes next. right? But when it is changed into indirect speech, it is no longer a question. We are not asking anybody any question. So you should not use the be form first and subject next. So as is the case with the regular sentences, subject comes first and be form comes next. But since this is past continuous and it becomes past perfect continuous, past perfect continuous had been plus V3, right? Sorry, had been plus V4. So he asked what you becomes what changes are to be made in this sentence. You have to change this pronoun and you have to change this adjective, right? So he asked what I had been doing with these becomes what? You know it very well. These becomes those, right? He asked what I had been doing with those keys. Okay. So two important things with reported speech are we do not make any changes to the tense of the sentence if the reporting verb is not in past tense. For instance, he says, I know everything. So he says, I know everything, right? We'll follow this. It is better. So he says, I know everything, right? Says is present tense, not past tense. So the reporting verb is not in past tense. As such, we are not supposed to make any changes to the tense of this sentence. I know everything is in simple present tense and you are supposed to keep it only in simple present tense. So the answer should be he says that, not he said that. He says that. So I becomes he, right? When I becomes he, no becomes knows. So he says that he knows everything, right? So if the given sentence is he said, I know everything. So it is in simple past tense, right? Reporting verb is in past tense. So now the answer is he said that. Simple present becomes simple past tense, right? He said that he knew everything, right? So sometimes you see the question may be like this. Very, very important. Lomo. I'm getting a noise. In my ears. From excitement. So here it is not given whether Lomov says or Lomov said, right? There is no reporting verb. So when there is no reporting verb, you have to assume that it is Lomov said. Remember. Okay. Lomov said. So you assume that it is Lomov said. Actually, you can also assume that it is Lomov says, since it is not given there. Right. So just for the sake of examination, let us stick to a standard rule. Let us assume that it is Lomo said. So the answer is Lomo said that I am getting a noise. Present continuous tense becomes past continuous tense and I becomes he. Lomo said that he was getting a noise. My ears becomes his ears. From excitement. Okay. Right. So next one is fill in the blanks with the suitable prepositions given in the brackets. See, we have a sentence here. So a plague dash locusts. Would have left more than this. So the options given here are wave off, off, and with. Right. So locusts means the, so they are a kind of insects, right? So plague dash locusts. So it is a plague of locusts means a group of locusts. It is like it's a collective noun, just like a swarm of bees. Okay. So it's a collective noun like a bunch of flowers, a swarm of bees, right? A bouquet of flowers, a herd of cows, of, right? So a plague of locusts would have left more than this. So this is the right answer. So the remaining two will not fit here, fit there. A plague with locusts, a plague of of. They don't fit here. It is a simple and straightforward option. So the second, if you take one more example, Wali saved every penny. Dash 6 months. To buy a bus ticket. So the options given here are for, in, and on. Right. So 6 months is duration of time. Right. So duration of time is always preceded by for. Wali saved every penny for 6 months. For 6 months to buy a bus ticket. Right. So we don't say Wali saved every penny in 6 months or on 6 months. Right. So whenever we talk about duration of time, it is preceded by for. So if it is the point of time instead of period of time, it is preceded by since, right? So if the sentence is Wali saved every penny, so Wali has been saving every penny dash January, then since will come. Right? So is it clear? So next one is question number 20 to edit the following passes. So let's take an example. Albert Einstein was born. The born is underlined. So it means there is a possibility of a mistake being there on 14th March 1879. In the town of Ulm, yet Germany. So it is underlined again. He was a slow learner. He did not speak until he was 3 years old. He is never considering brilliant pupil in school. Right. So there are certain parts which are underlined, which means there is a possible mistake or error which needs to be corrected, right? So Albert Einstein was born. What is the spelling of born? So that is a B-O-R-N, right? So here E is given. So this is one correction. Albert Einstein was born on 14th March 1879 in the town of Ulm. So Germany is a country. So before country, we are not supposed to use the preposition at. Since it is a country, so what should be used? In Germany, right? It is in Germany, in the state of Andhra Pradesh. In East Godavari, we don't say yet Andhra Pradesh, yet India, right? So because he was born in Germany, so he was a slow learner. He did not speak until he was 3 years old, and he is never considering. We have two errors since we are talking about something which had already happened. We are talking about something which happened in the past, right? So it should be he was, not is. He was never, he was never not considering. What is it? You know it very well. He was never considered. He was never considered brilliant pupil in school, right? So this is how we need to make changes or corrections to the underlined parts alone. We are not supposed to touch anything which is not underlined. Okay. So shall we go to the next one? The next question is related to articles. So we have a very important question here. 23, question number 23, fill in the blanks with suitable articles. Right. So the question is a very important question. He went to dash hospital to visit a friend. Right. See. So what article is to be used here? Is it A or an or the or is it no article? So what is to be used here? Where did he go? Where did he go? He went to hospital, right? Okay. So there is a rule when it comes to places like very important. See, so hospital, school, temple. So if that matters, any place of worship, it doesn't have to be a temple. It may be temple or church or mosque, hospital, school, temple, right? Prison. So when these places are visited for their primary purpose, right? So why does one go to school? So to study, right? That is the primary purpose of going to a school, right? So why does one go to hospital? To see a doctor when somebody is not feeling well, he goes to a hospital to see the doctor, right? That is the primary purpose, right? So why does one go to a temple or a church or a mosque to offer his prayers, right? Okay. So why does one go to prison? So one goes to a prison when he is imprisoned or convicted by the court of law, right? So these are the primary purposes. The rule says when these places are visited for their primary purpose, no article should be used. For example, my brother goes to school every day by bus. So my brother is studying there. He is a student and he is going to school because he is a student and he is visiting the school for the primary purpose of studying. As such, there is no article there, right? So it is the same case with the hospital. So did he go to the hospital to see the doctor or to see a friend? He did not go there to see the doctor, which is the primary purpose, right? The rule says when you go there for the primary purpose, there is no article, right? But when you go there for something else other than the primary purpose, definite article should be used. So he went to the hospital to visit a friend. If in the place of visit a friend, doctor is there. He went to the hospital. He went to dash hospital to see the doctor. If he went there to see the doctor, what is the rule? There is no article. He went to hospital to see the doctor, right? So that rule is very, very important. Please keep in mind whenever we talk about places like hospital, school, temple, and prison, if you are visiting them for the primary purpose, okay. So whenever we think of temple, so what comes to our mind? Offering prayers, right? But if you go there to meet somebody, or if you go there because you have something else to do, then definite article the should be used. So take one more example. So I saw dash movie last night. Okay. I saw which movie? So you have not mentioned, right? How many movies did you watch? Only one. So I saw a movie last night. The movie means one movie. Which movie you have not specified, unspecified, right? So it's very simple and straightforward. I saw a movie last night. Okay. So if I say I saw dash movie which you recommended. So in this sentence, I am talking specifically about one particular movie which was recommended by you, right? So here you have to go for the option the I saw the movie which you recommended yesterday, right? I'm not talking about an unspecified movie, but I am talking specifically about the movie which you recommended, right? So next one, question number 24. Change the following into repeated action in the past using would and used to. Very, very important. Usage of would and used to. Would and used to, right? So students often get confused as to what should be used, whether it is used to or would, right? Okay. So the rule says used to is used to talk about an action which happened in the past and it is no longer there right now. Okay. So it happened in the past and it is no longer there now. For example, my grandfather used to live in Moscow. My grandfather used to live in Moscow. So he no longer lives there. Okay. He no longer lives there. It is very, very clear. So here you cannot write my grandfather would live in Moscow. This is wrong. Okay. So it is very clear that the action does not happen anymore. As such, we can only use used to. Okay. So where do we use would then? So would and used to both are used to talk about past habits or repeated actions that no longer happen. But the difference is in the flexibility and context, right? So would cannot be used. Very, very important. Remember, would cannot be used with states. States means of feelings or emotions. Or situations as well. Okay. So another important thing is if you want to use would is used only when the context is mentioned. Very, very important. Would is used only when the context is mentioned. For example, I would go for a walk when I was a boy. Okay. When I was a boy, I would go for a walk. If this context is not given, this sentence is wrong. Okay. So that is that is something which you all should be careful about. Used to is used when something happened in the past and it no longer happens now anymore. Okay. Some past habit, something which happened in the past. For example, so I used to play cricket every evening. Okay, past habit. I cannot say I would play cricket every evening. I would play cricket every evening is wrong because context is not given. When I would play cricket every evening when I was at college. If that is given, then this is right. Right. If the context is given, then would is right. If if there is no context, it is wrong. So when I was a kid, I would play cricket every evening. Okay. Okay. So one more important thing which we have already discussed, would cannot be used with states, feelings, and emotions. For example, I used to be shy when I was a kid. It's a state, right? Not any action. So you cannot say, I would be shy when I was a kid. This is wrong. So I used to be angry with my friends is right. I would be angry with my friends is wrong. So next question is rewrite the sentences into a single sentence using noun modifiers.
Same.
Ah.
This one also you have to tell.
Okay.
Then they will be having directly. Effect of
Okay.
same wrong.
All the three.
All the three.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Same normal.
Sir, okay. Thank you, sir. Right. See, on weekends, we had picnics at the park. So having picnics is not any action, right? Not any. It's a stative verb. It's a state, right? So as such, your answer should be on weekends. We used to have picnics at the park. Not we would have picnics at the park, right? Take one more sentence. In my previous job, the context is given here. The context is given in my previous job. In my previous job, I attended weekly team meetings. So would is used only when the context is given, when it happened, right? And it should be used only when there are no feelings or emotions or states associated, right? So since the context is given, you can say here you can use would. In my previous job, I would attend weekly team meetings. Right. So take one more sentence. During my previous interview, I was shy. During my previous interview, I was shy. So being shy is a state, right? Not a deliberate action. So I was shy, right? So what should be your answer? During my previous interviews, I used to be shy. Okay, I used to be shy is right. I would be shy is wrong because we have already seen that would cannot be used with feelings and emotions, right? So see one more sentence. When we were children. So here the context is given. So we played hide and seek every evening. Right? So context is given when we were children. So would can be used here. Sorry. We would play hide and seek every evening. Okay. So remember one very important point here. If you are not sure whether you can use would or not, you can always go for used to. Okay. So if you are not very much sure, if you are unsure as to would can be used or not, you go for used to, because used to can be used in any context. Because even here we can use when we were children, we used to play hide and seek every evening. That is absolutely right. Right? Okay. So if you want to use would can be used only when context is given, when it happened. Without that, would cannot be used, and would cannot be used when we are talking about emotions, feelings, states. So, okay then. So, with this, we will conclude today's session, and tomorrow we will see rewriting the sentences into a single sentence using noun modifiers and giving a suitable advice using the given sentence here. And we also have for the next session, read the following paragraph and write the synonyms of the underlined words by choosing the words given in the box. So where you have a small paragraph with some words underlined, and you also have a box where a synonym is given for each word, and you have to identify the word which is closer to the word given here. And for tomorrow's session, we also have reading the paragraph and writing the antonyms of the underlined words. So question number 27 is about synonyms, whereas question number 28 is all about antonyms, right? And we will also see in tomorrow's session, fill in the blanks with the right form of the words given in the brackets and completing the words with correct prefixes, suffixes, misspelled words, and dictionary entries, idioms and phrases, and matching. So these are the topics which we are going to cover in tomorrow's session. And if you have any doubts regarding today's session, you can always you can always raise your doubts in tomorrow's class. Okay. So have a nice time. Thank you very much.